All right. Why don't we get started?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Make it a,
Well, welcome everyone, Heritage as Hook, to Asian American writers and how we write about Asian American AAPI issues on Medium. I'm Katie G. Salisbury. I'm the author of a forthcoming biography on Aimee Wong, and write a lot about Asian American identity as well as now Asian Americans in Hollywood and Hollywood history. And Aimee Liu is joining me. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
sure. I have written lots of books. The most recent is Glorious Boy, which appears backwards on your screen. That came out in 2020, and it's set in the Andaman Islands in India. And then the one before that was Flash House, also set in India. And then before that, I did 2 books that were based on my Chinese American family. Cloud Mountain and Face before that. And I've written a bunch of other things, but those are my Asian American novel credentials. So.
Great. So we have both been writing on Medium for a bit now. I'm just going to post our, well, I don't even know where the chat is. I'll post links later. But I thought maybe we could start by talking a little bit about how we got onto Medium and kind of what our goals were in terms of, the books that we published and the other writing that we do. And also just a note to everyone who's joined us, like, please feel free to put in your questions. We're happy to kind of answer them as we go. We'd love this to be like a more interactive conversation. But yeah, I'll let you start, Aimee, with like how you came to Medium.
Actually, I was only on Facebook and maybe barely even Twitter when I was planning the publicity for Glorious Boy, which was going to come out. Well, it did come out in the beginning of 2020, but we didn't know the pandemic was coming. So about 6 months before that, my publicist, started sending pieces out in the mail, and she actually has a Medium publication and started referring to Medium. And I looked at her publication, then I got deeper into it, and I realized that Medium was a way to post essays, for me, as far as I'm concerned, essays. Medium calls them stories, but a way to get published immediately and to start reaching a lot of people who I wouldn't ordinarily know how to reach. Most of what we were trying to place to promote the book were long lead magazine articles. And it was so frustrating. Waiting to see if they would be accepted and then waiting for them to publish. And in the meantime, those precious months before the book was launched, I had very limited ways of kind of expanding my readership. And so Medium seemed like a fantastic way to get started. And so I started posting my own work and my own ideas from other blogs and past stuff to get going. And then I jumped in really once the book was published, with excerpts from the book and pieces about the book. And even now I'm republishing some of the pieces that got published elsewhere and putting them on the platform, to reach the followers that I've acquired since the book came out. So it's been great.
Yeah, a lot of what you said resonated with me because I think the great thing about Medium is having the power to be able to just put your stories out there and connect with readers directly one-to-one. I mean, I've experimented with lots of different platforms on the internet. When I first moved to New York 15 years ago, I had a blog that was about living in Chinatown, which is what I was doing at the time. And then I've been on Medium for about 10 years and I've seen the various iterations of the site. But I think now that, once I was more focused on this book project, it was a similar thing where I wanted to gain a readership even during the time where I was like spending a lot of time alone as a writer, just working on this book, but also had all these other material and interesting stories that like I knew wasn't going to make it into the book, but like I'd love to share them because I was so fascinated by them. And so Medium has been a really great place to do that, especially for AAPI writers, because there are different verticals. Like, I mean, I think it's been fun every year to plan like a big piece to do around AAPI Heritage Month, because that usually gets a lot of traction when Medium is really curating stories around the Asian American experience. And then they also did the other vertical that was the Stop AAPI Hate during the pandemic. So that was, in this weird way, was another opportunity to talk about things that were going on in the community. So yeah, I've really appreciated the way that Medium has opened up access for writers to reach more readers.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things is it dovetails with all the other social media so nicely. Medium, to me, one of the things I love, I tend to be creative. Both you and I are photographers, Katie. So, being able to post our photography with
Mm-hmm.
our written work, and the pieces look so beautiful on Medium. They look like they're professional, articles in a respectable magazine or something. And then you can send them out and post them on Facebook and all of the other social media and get them out there. And then within Facebook, there are so many groups of AAPI, and then what you're posting to those groups is an actual article rather than just a rant or a thought or something like that. And I think it has a multiplying effect that's really great. The other thing that's fantastic about Medium is that it is really very global. And so, I've been able to connect with people all over the world and hear from them and share comments with them. And that's been terrific.
What's one of the ways that you have tried to like find your audience or maybe cultivate your audience on Medium?
Stop Asian Hate was great. And Zora has been phenomenal. And it's really about connecting with people through their comments. I've had long conversations with people that go back and forth in the comment section. And I've also, one of the great things, one guy contacted me the other day because my grandfather attended UC Berkeley. My Chinese grandfather attended UC Berkeley in 1903, 1906, and
Wow.
met my grandmother in 1906, my white grandmother. And that's a whole story. That was the whole basis for my book, Cloud Mountain. But I keep posting articles about it because I keep discovering new pieces of that history. And so on one of the ones that I posted recently, I got a comment from a guy who said, my grandfather was there at exactly the same time your grandfather was there. And so we took the conversation off of Medium into our personal email and went back and have shared all kinds of archival stuff that's just incredible about our two families. And, there's been a lot of difference, but some of the parallels are wonderful.
And actually, as you say that, that's such a wonderful story of how you connected with the reader, but that's also how we connected.
Yes, true.
Was through
Right.
Medium. Yeah, and I actually like listening to you talk about that. I think that the comments on Medium stories, I feel like are much more thoughtful and engaged than even than, general publications, like national publications, but it's a much more community feeling where it's not like people talking at you, but they're genuinely like want that engagement. So yeah, I've really enjoyed that as well when people comment and you can have like a dialogue about different things, and it's even better when you can like connect and like actually like share other stories and learn things from them.
Yeah. I think one of the publications that's been sort of surprising and really wonderful for me has been Zora, which
Mm-hmm.
is for women of color. And I think most of the pieces that they publish on Zora tend to be in the Black community. But I think that the editors at Zora really wanted to open up to be a much more kind of a multiracial approach. So they've been incredibly welcoming with the pieces that I've posted about my family. And that's been great. And Human Parts also has been phenomenal with the pieces that I've written about my family. I guess I jumped a step here, which was after my book came out and, it was kind of had done its thing. I started working on a memoir about my father's biracial family and started developing pieces. So my thought for using Medium for that was really to kind of do trial runs of pieces of the story on Medium to see if they gained traction, to see what people thought about them, and just kind of get them out into the world. And you and I met, Katie, I think, over the piece that I did about Yellowface, because my father and my aunt were very active in Hollywood at exactly the same time that Anna May Wong was. Actually, they may have been a little bit after her, but no, they were the same time because my
Yeah,
dad was
yeah,
in one of her movies. So
yeah, exactly.
that was how we connected, and that was, I believe, that was published on Zora. And I don't know that there are publications on Medium that are dedicated to Asian Americans. I don't think so, but it's
Right.
nice that there are these larger homes where we're welcome.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I don't know if it's helpful for people, but maybe we could talk a little bit about what the process is like to get published by a Medium publication. I mean, what was your, I mean, in my experience, it's often happened where I've published a piece and then I've got received interest from Zora or from maybe another place rather than working with an editor first to publish it there. But I know that there's also, I think there's another way that you can like request once you're become like a contributor, you can also, I think, suggest your
Mhm,
stories to them
mhm.
for like publication underneath their like, greater publication. So is that what your experience has been?
Every publication is different. I think for me, the most important thing is to get signed. If there's a publication I want to write for, contact the editor. Well, first you go to that publication's about page, or if sometimes they have a submissions tab and they'll let you know how to get signed on. Some of them require a sample of your writing, or they want a link to something else that's been published elsewhere before they'll let you in. So each publication is different. And once you're accepted as a contributor, then yes, anything you write, you can say, I want to submit to Human Parts, submit to Zora. Some of them have longer waits than others. I've noticed that, for example, Human Parts has switched their editorial liaison a few months ago. And so it used to be pretty speedy to get a response, and now it's
Mhm.
very slow to get a response. And some publications will notify you when you're accepted before your piece drops.
Right.
Um, Now a lot of them don't. I have the sense that people are just really uh, backed up. They're they're expected to do more, and so everybody's really, really overworked. So that's one thing. The other kind of tip I would say is, in my experience, it's better to submit and wait for it to be accepted than it
Mm,
is to publish it yourself and then submit it. Because if you publish it yourself, um, the first thing that kind of your own personal followers will find it, but nobody else is going to find it.
right.
In my experience, it's less likely to get boosted than if it
Mhm.
gets published originally by a publication, especially a major publication like Human Parts or Zora. So you're better off waiting, which can be frustrating sometimes, because sometimes I
Mm,
mean, I've waited up to 3-4 weeks before the piece has been finally, and in that 3 and 4 weeks, I've had no idea whether it got lost in the
right.
shuffle, if somebody was looking at it, I didn't know, but it was worth it in the end. That happened actually with the last big piece that I published on Human Parts, which uh, I don't know, just got several thousands of
Wow.
views. So yeah.
That's great. That's a good tip. I have been a little bit less methodical about it and kind of just throw things up, when I feel like it. And then once in a while I'll get a request from Zora or another publication to can we, include your article in our publication, which I'm always happy to do. And then you're right, it does make a big difference in terms of like readership and views. So that's probably something that
Yeah.
I think I will do in the future moving forward.
I think
But
you're more likely to get boosted if its initial drop is in the big publication,
okay,
because then, in my experience, they boost it almost immediately.
right.
Whereas if it's already been sitting around for a couple of weeks on your own page,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it works the same way.
Yeah. I mean, I've had like pieces oftentimes they will get boosted, but the impact is very low.
Yeah.
And I think that also speaks to just the impact you get when you are published by one of the larger publications on Medium. I think it does make a huge difference.
Yeah.
And to that point, maybe another topic, maybe the elephant in the room. We both write for Medium and Substack, and sometimes we're cross-posting or syndicating our own work. So I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about like when we decide to write something for one place and not another, or put them on both. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I had kind of a clear program when I started writing on both, because the way I view things, Substack is a newsletter, and it goes to people who have opted in already, theoretically, or opted to stay. And so they're more like, if I have an announcement about someplace I'm going to be speaking or an event like this, I will put it out either on its own or as part of a longer newsletter on Substack. But I think the stuff on Substack for me tends to be more personal. I feel more of a personal connection with the people who have subscribed there, whereas I really view Medium more as a magazine where I can publish my pieces, and I can publish about anything on Medium. I kind of have, the Asian American is a niche on both places, but if I want to write something on health and wellness, I have places I can publish on Medium. If I want to write about writing, I do it. I have split my Substack, so it's kind of half about writing and half about Asian American, and I'm not sure it's working, because I think it feels a little bit like these audiences are not completely aligned with each other.
Right.
I don't know how well that's going to end up working, but it's what I'm doing over there. But that's how I see it. One's a newsletter and one's a magazine. It's the simplest way.
Yeah, I mean that is like, and I think the very simple way to think about it. I mean, a good way to think about it, but it often gets confused because people are consuming, stories in so many different ways. So it's hard to keep track. But I definitely agree with that. I think, yeah, thinking of Medium as a magazine really makes sense to me, because when I write for Substack, again, yeah, it's the same as you. I'm writing for people who've opted in, and I'm generally writing about Aimee Wong. So I'm writing for like super fans who want to hear about her every month, who want to hear about her over and over again. And I realize not everyone wants to hear about her that often, or wants to know the, intricate details of her life. And so oftentimes when I write posts that are more tangential to Aimee Wong, or that are more about Asians in Hollywood, or just like, Asian American representation in general, those pieces I always feel have a more Medium is a great home for them, because it's geared more towards like a general audience, and you can kind of come in you don't need to have knowledge of Aimee Wong to be able to understand the larger themes of like what her career really, the impact of her career means, so that's kind of, they're more like outgrowths of this topic that I'm, deeply invested in, but also, trying to pull out the larger themes for a general audience. So, and it's been really fun to use, like you were saying earlier, to use it as a sounding board, to use Medium as a sounding board where you can get real-time feedback from a more general audience. You can also try out different titles and subtitles, different images, and see what like really sticks with people and what works. So that's also been fun to actually have kind of different places to write things and do them in slightly different ways.
Yeah, and I do that if I have something that works in both places. I will change the title and change the image that goes with it so that it has a different vibe. Because I do worry about, there are people, I don't know how many people, but there are people who subscribe to both platforms for me.
Mhm,
So I don't
mhm.
want to bug them by sending them
Right.
exactly the same thing over and over. But if you change a few things, reframe it, edit it, revise it slightly, then they're kind of getting two different kinds of tastes of the same apple. And then you're also reaching the parts of the audience that are totally, totally separate. But I think one of the things that's been surprising to me, actually, when I started on Substack, one of my thoughts there was, well, here's a place I can put the really obscure bits of Asian American history
Mm,
that are in my family about, the monarchists in San Francisco in 1900, or, the whole world of the scholar revolutionary, like my grandfather who came to America and then went back and became politicians. And I have so much material from him about,
right.
the prostitutes in Peking. And I got tons of stuff that's really obscure that doesn't fit into the kind of the immediate family memoir that I'm working on as my core project. So I've been trickling those pieces out onto Substack, where they've gotten fantastic receptions, but I've also then redone them, a lot of those particular pieces on Medium. And I've been absolutely shocked that they've been some of my more popular
Mm,
pieces on Medium. So you can't, a lot of that has to do, I think, with the editors of Medium, though, when they are, particularly with Zora and Human Parts, because they have responded to these stories and given them the boost, in ways that I really didn't think that they would. But it's been fun, and there are scholars too that I've met,
mhm.
Asian American scholars who have reached out and been reading my stuff. And once you've got it published on Medium, then again, if you find one of those groups on Facebook, which are Asian American scholars, it's great to have them. I can give you this link and you can read about Yung Wing, and my grandfather meeting on Yung Wing in 1898. It's a very obscure piece of history, but if you've got it written and ready to go anytime you meet somebody who happens to be
Right.
interested in that thing, that connection. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really incredible. I'm just gonna pause for a moment and just let people know we're, happy to take questions. I don't think we've received any other ones yet, unless I'm missing something, but I don't think so. But yeah, we're happy to take questions about anything related to writing on Medium, how to reach, telling Asian American stories or how to reach your audience. Um, and I actually had another question for you, Aimee, which was, while we're, waiting to see if anyone else wants to chime in, was you're a very prolific writer. How often do you find that you are publishing on Medium?
I'm very erratic on Medium. I think one of the things about Substack, especially once you start to kind of get in that groove, you realize, oh, I kind of have to publish on Substack once a week, or
Mhm.
depending on what kind of contract you've sort of set up with your readers there, and that becomes kind of like a job. Whereas with Medium, I don't publish unless I've got something that is pretty juicy. I don't. I used to publish kind of off the top of my head thoughts during the pandemic. It was great for
Mhm.
that. It gave me a reason to write these things. I'd go out for a walk and I'd have an idea and I'd come home and I'd write it up, and I'd spend a couple of hours on it and it gave it somewhere to go. But that's not really a great, use of my time anymore, because I've got so many other things that I'm doing. It's fun. I enjoy doing it, but it doesn't really sort of make the most sense. So now I only publish on Medium when I've got something that I think is significant. And lately, mostly what it is when among the many jobs that I juggle, when I have time to focus on my book, I will say, oh, this chapter of the book or this section of the book would make a really good, concise medium piece.
Mm.
And then I will recraft it, edit it into ideally about a 7-minute story, and then get that posted and set to go. And that's, maybe once a month I'll do that. And that seems to be about right, because when I've published something like that and it gets boosted and it gets traction, and then I try and follow it up a week later with something else, and a week after that, that is of lesser quality, and sometimes it's a reprint of something that I posted elsewhere, it gets ignored. And so, I'll go from, many thousands of views down to 60 views, and you're looking at that and you're thinking, well, that's not really a good use of my time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes me think about, I think it's interesting that you, after writing a chapter and realizing maybe a shorter version of it or a piece of it could be a good piece for Medium, makes me think about all the things I had to cut from my book.
Yeah, no, they're all essays. They're,
Yeah.
yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean, because writers are always told you have to kill your darlings, and but you still want to find another life for them. And I definitely, there was one of the early chapters of my book about Anna May Wong. It goes kind of way off the deep end and goes into all this backstory, because her father was born in California. She was a third generation Californian, or an American, and her father was born in a gold mining town in Northern California. So I went into like the gold rush, but also, why then the Chinese were really there to build the railroads. And then the railroads were how Leland Stanford became rich. And Leland Stanford is the man who funded, Edward Muybridge, who basically pioneered, movie making. And so it was this whole thing, and it was, really far flung. But I just had so much fun researching it and writing it, and ultimately, I had to cut it from the book. But
publish it on Medium.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely what you're making me think. So I think, yeah, that's something to work on in the coming months. Yeah. Let's see. I mean, anything else that we didn't cover?
Ask a question. We want to know what you're interested in.
I hope there's not like an issue with the question functionality, because I just don't see any. Well, this has been really fun. I mean, it's always such a joy to chat with you, Aimee.
Well, it's interesting, all of the areas where we overlap, and the people that you've introduced me to have been great. And like Philip On, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, the fact that he was at USC at exactly the time my father was there, and that they were probably, my father was into Hollywood at that point, and he was maybe not quite into it. Did he come in
he was
a little
just
later?
He was just getting into Hollywood around like 1937, 1938, because that's when he started doing his first films with Anna May. He had done some bit parts before that, and actually, and his family's still around LA. His one of his nieces, I spoke with her, who I got in touch with through some of the work some of the pieces I've published, and she's also mixed. So there's just a lot of like fun. There's just so many there's so many Asian Americans who were involved in Hollywood during that era that we don't get to hear about. So it's really fun.
I think it's 12:30. Is it 12:30? So
yes.
Will they cut us off? I'm not sure what happens.
They might. If they do, this was really fun. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get to do it again.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess we'll keep chatting in case there's anything more, but I'm sorry we didn't get any questions.
Any straight questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I put both of our Medium sites in the chat,
Okay.
so people can find us there.
Thank you.
And yeah, I hope it was at least like a interesting and useful chat for people.
Yeah. Thank you for hosting, for emceeing.
You're welcome. I guess it's just something I've gotten used to doing.
Oh, good. I've done it many times. I've never gotten used to it. So
Sometimes it's easier to be the MC than it is to be the person in the hot seat. I don't know. I guess it can go both ways. Depends.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, should we just end things there?
I guess so. Not sure even how to end, but I think our audience is drifting away, so maybe we.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll just. Actually seeing. Oh, okay. There was some kind of moderation thing, but I don't know what that is.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we just end things there?
Oh, Chandamita. I don't know.
I don't know what this means though.
No. I don't know.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
All
I
right.
guess we'll
Well,
end things there.
yeah, and everything is an experiment on this first trial of this. So, okay, great.
Well, it was great talking with you, Aimee, and
Lovely to see you.
yeah, hope to see you again soon.
Okay. All right.
All
Thanks, Katie.
right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.